Well, hey guys, welcome to Hope Rescue Podcast. This is Kimberly and Tim Scott, and we have a special guest.
Who is this young woman?
She is the rose between two thorns today.
What are you doing?
I don't know. I feel like you're introducing me to a crowd.
What is this, the parade wave?
Yes,
the
princess
royal wave.
Or it's the Disney princess wave.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yes, this is our daughter Shara. And
Hello.
if you were a Disney princess, which one do you identify most
I
with?
really loved Ariel as a kid.
Aww.
Actually, not even as a kid, as like a 15-year-old. Like I wasn't super into Disney princesses, and then at 15, all of a sudden, I wanted everything Ariel, which is weird.
Yes.
And I know that now.
Yeah.
So here we are.
So what is it about Ariel that you identify with? On the spot question from Mom.
Like really, like my best friend being fish, and like
You did have a fish.
like being like a mermaid. I don't know.
So Tim, if you were a Disney prince,
Are you gonna say
I don't even know who they are, so it doesn't matter.
babe, you're my Disney prince.
Okay.
You're like all of them mixed together.
That's all I'm saying.
So we intentionally asked Shara to join us today for our recording because there's been a lot of things that have happened and changes that have taken place in our home, as many of you can understand and experience through this last, month and a half of this Corona quarantine
Seems like
situation.
about 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. April was 3 years long, and we're still in it.
Yes.
Yes.
So we've often spoke about Gracie being at home, but now Shara has joined us. So we decided today to do a little podcast about some of those changes that families are experiencing. But we want to focus primarily on Shara coming from more of a millennial perspective on how some of these changes have affected that age group, and kind of toss around insight. And first of all, though, Shara, maybe jump us into a little bit of your story about how this has all taken place and what happened, the shifting and your job situation and all that.
Oh, gotcha. Well, first of all, before we get into this, I thought we were going to talk about something funny.
Yes. What's the funny thing that we learned about ourselves?
Yes,
okay, and then
because I feel like that's
I've
really
got funny
important
things I've learned
to
about
go
you
into
guys,
first.
but not about me. I'm not
All
much
right.
of a learner.
All right.
Okay, Mom, you go first.
So I would say a couple of funny things. One is that I have learned to socially not distance from the refrigerator.
Come on.
So that's been an issue for sure. And I do miss the days that I could spin my toilet paper like it was Wheel of Fortune. You could just roll that baby. Because I'm like a buncher. And some people are tucker and rollers, but I'm a buncher.
That's TMI.
I'm just saying I miss those days. But
I'm married to you, and I don't even want to know that.
Lord.
So that's my funny stuff.
Okay.
Wow.
I would say I have kind of two things that I think are funny. One is that I never realized till the last month how lazy I can be. You know what I mean? Aside from this, I've had 2 jobs, work kind of from 9 a.m. till 10 p.m. at night every other day, and feel like I'm a pretty productive person. I don't even want to go on a 10-minute walk. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know.
Why is that, right?
I don't know, because I'm tired from laying around, and I don't know why.
There's reasons for that.
Lethargic.
Yes. And then also, and something else that's funny is I did the one thing that everyone recommends you don't do in crisis, which is get bangs.
Oh,
So here we are.
I love the bangs.
Thank
did
you.
too.
I
I
told
did
you
get the
that.
bangs.
I
I did it, and it is what it is.
Are
and
you
I like
serious?
them.
Is that a thing?
It's
Don't get bangs
Yes,
when
girls
you're
are
in a
not supposed to
crisis?
get bangs. Make big decisions.
Yes.
in
Like
big
you
moments.
break up with a guy, don't go with bangs.
Yeah, last time I got a breakup, I shaved my hair off.
yeah, that was
Pretty
dramatic.
much.
So,
So-
you're doing better this time.
This is a good in between for me.
I don't go with bangs. I got a little bit.
Babe, you have like a Superman curl going
Yeah,
on.
that's. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, your turn.
So I really have learned some funny things about you guys.
Oh, no, you have to talk about
No,
yourself.
I seriously, I cannot believe in this crisis, I have not cared at all about diet. And I'm usually very
so strict, yes.
And I watch what I eat. Now I go, do you want a burrito? Yeah.
Give me
Yeah,
two.
one.
Chips. Yes, chips. And fries. And beans and rice.
Yeah.
Yes. Give me
Because
it
it
all.
doesn't count.
Is it fried food? Because I'm going to have some of that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have fried ice cream.
Ooh, come on.
Yeah.
We need to make that.
So I really learned that in this situation, I'm a person that just doesn't care about my diet right now.
Which is not you.
And I've gained a lot of weight.
Yeah, well,
We all
join the
have.
human race. I
Right.
feel like, I mean, thank goodness that we have enough food to gain weight from, because globally that's not necessarily the situation. But I do think more people can relate to that than can't. And being hunkered down, it's homemaking. It makes you feel comforted. But when you're making food, and you're kind of making the best of the
Which,
situation.
by the way, you're doing a lot of baking. I'm just being real about
Hey,
that.
me, we got
Yeah.
2 girls.
And you
Shara.
guys have been doing baking. Cookies, thankfully, you guys make chocolate chips, and I don't care for those.
Yeah.
But another thing that I've learned is that, like Shara and I were talking, that you feel like you're kind of an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
But during this time, I've realized I kind of miss interacting with people that I see every day. I went to Starbucks drive-through at a Starbucks that's different than the ones that I normally go to. This is not a plug for Starbucks, by the way. I should have said coffee shop, but whatever. Okay, it's glorious. Anyway, so I go through and I saw the guy's eyes. I recognized that. Is that weird that I knew his eyes? Anyway, had a mask on, and I saw his eyes, and I went, "Oh, hi!" And we wanted to hug, but we didn't.
Yeah.
But it was through the drive-thru.
You were
and I was
hugging
like,
with
The
those eyes.
tips of your fingers touched as you grabbed the cup from him, and it was a beautiful moment for you.
Electricity. But I realize I miss these
Human
people, the
connection.
baristas,
Mhm.
and I miss all my friends. I don't know if they're friends, people we say.
Well,
They're my acquaintances.
I will
I
say
think your
this.
friends are your routines.
I miss
you
working out.
are one of the best huggers out there, and I know there's a lot of people that miss your hugs
Yes.
because you're a
Gross,
great
Mom.
hugger.
Getting a
No,
lot
that's
of-
not
Getting
weird.
a lot of email about that.
That's not weird, but it is
Just
true. When
kidding.
you speak online for Torrey Pines Church every Sunday, plug to Torrey Pines Church at 12:45. You're on their website
All right.
or live. A lot of times we host the live parties, and in the feed, I hear every week how many people miss your hugs and are so glad to see you preaching. But it doesn't take the place, does it, of
No.
being able to have real connection and interaction. So there's been a fallout. Everybody's experiencing some kind of fallout.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of wanted to process that with you today. And especially from Shara's perspective, we
the
have
millennial.
the millennial
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I'm a baby boomer.
Mhm.
My wife is
Generation
a
X.
Gen Xer.
Yes.
We have most of our kids are either Gen
Millennials.
X. The older kids are Gen X, but millennials, and then we have one as a Gen Z.
We got it all, baby.
We got everybody.
Yeah.
We have every generation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, to go back to the original question that I so rudely
Set it
interrupted
up.
in the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a crazy time. I think that, so before I was living in Orange County, I had my own place. I was working 2 jobs, one in social media during the day, kind of like the 9 to 5 situation, and then doing a serving job in the evenings, which I had just started and was loving, actually. And I was loving kind of my own little life that I was creating up there, kind of really making it home and my own, and really kind of enjoying my routines and all of that.
And you had recently gotten into your own independent living situation. where you
Yeah,
had a
living on
flat.
my own. Yeah. Completely on my own. And that was awesome. Something that I worked really hard to get to that. And that meant a lot to me.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, all of a sudden this Corona thing started, quarantine started coming up. And, I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but at the beginning, I'm not a news person. I don't watch the news. But I was
I
kind of
watch it for you.
I know you don't. But I was kind of like, I don't think this is going to be as bad as people are making it sound. Like, this is going to go away. It's not going to be a big deal. That's indicative of my personality anyway. It's like, it'll go away. It's not as a big deal as everyone's making it. Well, then quarantine happened, and I was still kind of like, okay, this will be a week. This will be 2 weeks. That max, it'll be fine. It wasn't. My job shut down. Income was cut in half. Luckily, I'm still thankful to have my social media positions, and I'm really thankful for that. But quarantining by yourself, I don't have the family that was up there came down to San Diego to quarantine with some of their family. And so it would have been just me up there by myself, which was not a decision for my mental health. Was like, I need to come down and be with family in quarantine.
Even though that ruined our mental health.
And I know. I'm so sorry.
It was
Oh my
straining our
gosh.
mental health to have you.
I have to
No,
say-
actually, it's been a blessing.
I was just going to say, I want to
The truth
interrupt,
of
and then
that.
I want you to keep going. But it actually has been, I feel like God is so good in even the small ways, because with Gracie being home, it actually has brought so much sunshine into our house and our life, and joy having Shara here. She's hilarious, and
the 2 of them
they're
together.
best friends.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
so
gosh.
it's very sweet. And so they do their thing, and then
Well, here's what I think. We got Shara, we got Gracie, and we got TikTok. So we've got
Oh,
everything
Lord.
we need to keep
Oh,
Yes.
going.
Lord. Yes. No,
Yes.
you're right.
No.
You're right. I'm not
Yeah.
saying
the
you're
black
right.
hole of TikTok.
We're all in it. Let's be honest.
Well,
we
not
used
yet.
to talk about clickbait,
Yeah.
on Facebook or some videos or YouTube or whatever, TikTok is really, I've
Taken
never been
over.
on it.
Yeah.
Just so
Yeah,
you know.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
But I get to see when you show me.
Yeah.
So what were
Sure.
you saying?
So I'm just, that was more of my experience. So coming home and, there is this big question mark, for, I think, millennials, which what does this look like for us when this is all over, whether you listen to the news or not, there's a lot going on around there's going to be a new recession. There's going to be a huge financial backlash with this. People are going to lose their jobs indefinitely. There's a huge question mark, I think, even for people coming, is there going to be college next year, or are we all going to be from home again? Or, you know what I mean? There's just so many questions. And obviously everyone struggles with their own kind of routines. I've heard a lot of, moms talking about homeschooling and how difficult that is. But kind of what I can speak to is just this unknown and the fear and the anxiety that kind of is wrapped up in what does next month even look like? You know what I mean? And I think that was really difficult for me because I felt like I was on the right path. I was going somewhere and I was working hard for it. And it is something I worked hard to get towards. And then now it's kind of like, is that gone now? Am I starting from scratch? And I think there's actually it's interesting in times like this. I think a lot of narratives from what we told ourselves as kids are coming into play as adults. So we're thinking things, even though it's just like, oh, is it my job? But is it really, are you telling yourself, am I not going to have a job? Or is it, I'm a failure? Or am I going to fail again? Or, you know what I mean? There's these things that I think are underlying the initial fear or anxiety that are causing these bigger questions and these bigger dips in mental health, I think, across the board for millennials.
Yeah.
I think.
So, I think one of the things about millennials, even though you've grown up in a world where terrorism is a constant reality, it's out there.
Yeah.
It's not here. You were a little girl when 9/11 took place. But in my generation, it was Vietnam. And it wasn't a war that was over there because the protests, and it was just something that we lived on a regular basis in my teen years in the 60s and the early 70s. And, family that were involved in the military at that time, two of my brothers during Vietnam. And I think millennials haven't had it good. I'm not saying that, but they've had kind of a peaceful time.
Yeah.
My parents' generation, it was World War II. Before we had World War I. So you've always had these huge global life-shattering things. Now, terrorism has been global, but it's not been here on the
Yeah.
land.
Right. Well,
But I think that this, for every single generation, this crisis is unique because it's caused us to kind of be shaken. I don't know that we're so much afraid because your generation is not, and even yours, Kimberly, is not subject to this as much, the health problems. My generation, because we're in our 60s and 70s. And the baby boomers get sick with this, and it could be fatal.
Right, and it has been. There's so many that we know.
It is a different, each generation, but all of us are looking at this from a economic standpoint. You've already lost, and is that going to be a permanent loss? The company you were working for is a small company. Are they going to survive?
Yeah.
And we've not really been impacted that way. Kimberly and I haven't in terms of our livelihood.
Well, we've lost a ton in our investment in our retirement. So that is an impact.
But that I don't even
unless
look
it
at
comes back.
I mean, I looked at it the other day and I went, oh my goodness, that is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And but it'll come back, and Lord willing, and if it doesn't, then you'll have to take care of me when I'm old. I'm talking to both of you.
Right.
Yeah. So,
we're putting you in a home.
So what would you say has been the thing that you've learned? I want to first say, what have you learned about yourself? Not funny thing, but what have each one of us learned about ourselves? And we'll talk about what we've learned about society in general. Okay. So what do you think you've learned about yourself, Kimberly? Or you want Shar to go first?
Yes.
I mean, I think I'm in the process of learning. I think that this time of kind of emptiness, almost in a way, is bringing up a lot of things that maybe I wasn't aware of, or just kind of self-realization a lot, which I'm thankful for, because I think that this is a great time for that kind of stuff to rise to the surface a little bit. But I think I definitely have realized I'm a systems person. I'm very kind of independent in how I live my life. I'm 27 and I'm single, so most of my life has been me going about my life, doing my thing, like obviously having family around, but very independent in a way. And I feel like I can't have that, and that's difficult just because it's been a part of my systems, you know. And again, systems, like I had my daily kind of what I did list. I wake up, make a coffee, routine, and go to work there, come home, take a little break, eat lunch, get ready to go to my next job. And it's, you know, those routines. But also I think I'm learning that it is so crucial in times like these to be kind to yourself and give yourself grace with the ups and downs that it's going to bring across the board, you know, because one day you can feel like you're on top of the world and you're doing great and you're happy and you've got this quarantine thing down. And then the next day you can kind of plummet and you can feel like, where I was just here yesterday and I was doing fine, but learning to not beat yourself up over that and just give yourself grace to be okay with the fact that this is difficult and this is not easy. And there's no checklist to check to make this any easier, any better.
It's out of our control.
Exactly.
You know, I just thinking about you as a systems person and routine and stuff. When you were a teenager, I never saw you that way. And even in your younger adult years. But when I saw you as a youth pastor, I was like, oh my gosh, she is totally organization, systems, get it done, you know, organize it. I'm like, okay, where'd that come from?
It was always
now,
there.
all of that's been thrown upside down.
What the heck, man?
Yeah, but you're also still, even in the home though, you've got your systems. You mentioned something that I thought was interesting, and I think a lot of people can identify with, is that especially in the first 3 or 4 weeks of this, there was a weird sense of fatigue.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of us. We're not used to having a hard stop. Like we work rest into our life around our work. And then all of a sudden, all you have to do is be home. And it's this forced pause. And so I think your body actually, part of it could be shock or absorbing kind of the trauma of what you're going through and those fears, but all in a way to escape that is sleep. But also I think it's a healing thing that your body does, is to just like allow yourself to finally to just rest.
You know, the first, just how I processed this, the first week or two, I was wasting so much time. And then I just kind of like, I got to get some things done. Got our garage completely redone. I've actually got my best garage I've ever had in my life.
You've been the project man.
Both of you have been project people.
And then, you know, we got stuff for our backyard. I got that set up when one of our sons, Malachi, was helping me do that. And it just, you know, all of these projects, but also the amount of writing and study. And there's been a lot of work in the corporate work that I do. There's been a lot going on there. And so I've gotten busy. And I think at first you kind of, what do I do with this kind of free time? Because I'm not traveling. I don't have meetings. You know, and then you just kind of have to adjust to that and buckle down. It's feel like if you've ever been water skiing and you're behind that boat and the boat's going at a regular speed, and then you go out beside the boat and you're just kind of, you know, you're kind of whipping around, and then the boat turns into you, and then you have this slack in that rope, and then you're just like, oh, wow, what's going on? And then all of a sudden the boat hits and it comes taut again, and you're just kind of, oh, hang on. And that's how it's been. About 2 weeks in, that line got taut again, and I started you know, really focusing on work and projects.
It's like when the reality began to set in. And I know so many experienced probably the same timeline. That was when you know, several weeks into it, when parents realized, I'm going to be schooling my children. Husbands were like, okay, we are going to be working from home. And so everybody's scrambling. You know, initially we were all kind of stalled out. And I think that's normal and healthy. And then all of a sudden there's this panic of, I've got to be productive and I've got to work from home and I got to, you know, school my kids. And and you've started into a system of working from home and
Zoom.
yeah. So my question is, because there is no foreseeable like hard date of when this will end, I'm wondering will we ever transition completely back to what was before? And do we want to?
Yes, we will. 1918, 1919, and even pouring into 1920 in the so-called Spanish flu. They thought the same thing, but they got back into life. And of course, World War I had just finished. And so, life went back to normal. During World War II, will it get back to normal? It got back to normal. And I think the thing I think we'll be more aware of influenza. We'll be more aware of, epidemics. And I think we'll be more prepared. But for the average citizen in the U.S. and around the world, I think we get back to normal. We always do. World War II was over. We got back to normal. Vietnam was over. Back to normal. So even now, people that have been traumatized by this, it could affect them.
Yeah.
Right.
So here's one of the things we talked about. We only have a few minutes left, but I wanted to talk about what it means to prepare for a crisis and the impact that a crisis has on us. My dad used to say this, and I thought he made it up, but it actually came from somebody else. I Googled it to see if he was there, credited for it. And that was this: adversity doesn't build character, it reveals character. And he used to say it this way: crisis doesn't build character, it reveals character. That was actually said by James Lane Allen. And he was a writer, a novelist, and so forth. And adversary doesn't build character, it reveals preparation as well. Are we prepared? And I love this scripture, and I just want to read this, and then we can talk about it a little bit. Everyone then who hears these words of mine, Jesus said, and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And this is Matthew 7:25. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat down on the house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. Verse 26, and everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man that built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. So everybody's got the same crisis. The rain comes, you've got the floods come, you got the winds blowing, it's beating down upon the house, but your preparation determines your success of riding through this. So marriages that have been kind of shaky, in many cases, may improve because you're like, we're really spending time together. But unfortunately, because people are unprepared and their relationship foundation was not solid, they're actually at each other.
Fracturing.
Yeah. So your thoughts about that, just kind of this preparation for crisis. I think we go, okay, I need to prepare. You're in the middle of crisis. And certainly God will show up at that moment. But we need to be prepared for things like this in our lives. And,
I think maybe this will be like, in some ways, for everybody, in a positive way, the great kind of reset. Because you will go into the future, whatever that looks like, now having experienced something that was intangible for anybody to even imagine, and having been through some pretty bumpy stuff in our life with our health and divorces and stuff. We've lived long enough to know some trauma. Shara has walked through that. We did an episode with her about children in divorce and some of what we went through, but not to the degree of this, where it's like, there's a much bigger picture. But what I want to emphasize is that, yes, I think we need to be prepared. But yes, there is also an opportunity in the midst of this crisis to create a new foundation, a new solid foundation, the solid rock in your marriage, and to take this opportunity of being locked down, quote unquote, with your spouse and your family and some of the conflicts that arise, and actually recreate the culture of your home. You've been given like this amazing gift, this opportunity of time, of concentration of time and opportunity. And it's not that you go through that perfectly, but take the opportunity.
Yeah, we every night when we go to bed, we pray and thank God for how well it's going for us.
And we bicker too, people.
We do. Well, we always did. But maybe both of our daughters go into their rooms and cry. I can't take them anymore.
No, I think it's so true. And I think for people who are single during this time, or you're kind of accounting for just yourself, when it says reveal character, I feel like that can kind of sound a little bit negative, like you're going to see who you really are. But I think that actually can be a very kind thing. It can be a very beautiful time of reflecting on, how do I act in crisis? What are my go-to coping mechanisms? Yeah. What are my narratives that I jump to from childhood? And kind of relearning and being kind to yourself and showing yourself grace, but also speaking truth to yourself against anything, whether that be a coping mechanism or a narrative that's just not true. And you can actually relearn so that the next time when you're in crisis, you're better equipped to handle it, so that maybe your dive isn't so deep if that is where you find yourself in this time. But that's all going to be birthed out of kindness and not hate. So being kind to yourself, giving yourself grace, and taking a step back and being like, okay, what am I saying to myself? How am I feeling? What is going on here? What am I turning to? And then showing yourself love in that, but maybe guiding yourself towards a different avenue.
Yeah, that's good. I know that in this passage I just read out of Matthew chapter 7, it's about God's perspective versus man's perspective. And so we've got these scientists that they first told us don't wear a mask. Then they said do wear a mask. Then they said don't go out, or do go out in public. Now don't go out in public. And there's all these conflicting. You got all these models that turned out to not be true. And one thing, we get really cynical and conspiratorial and go, well, there's this big conspiracy. I think I think it's a mistake. But we need to remember, man is flawed and makes mistakes. God is not. And our trust has to be in the Lord. I memorized Psalm 1 years ago, the whole psalm. And it starts out like this: blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, or stands in the way of sinner, or sits in the seat of the scornful, but in the law he meditates day and night. He loves the law and he meditates it day and night. And he'll be like a tree planted by the rivers of water. Yeah. So the strength comes from being grounded in the Word of God and in God's perspective and not man's perspective. So I don't think we need to run around and be cynical all the time and go, well, president messed up, or this governor's a mess and our governor's this and that. I think what we need to do is go, okay, man is flawed. They're doing the best they can. If they have evil motives, let them have those evil motives. My trust is going to be in the Lord. Yeah. And don't put your trust in man. Man will always disappoint, but God will never disappoint. You'll always pull through with God's perspective. We're out of time. Yeah. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Come back real soon, since you live with us, Sharas.
You're so cute on camera. We love you, sweetie.
And she's so single, by the way.
Yes.
Hey.
You have to go through me. Anyway, just letting you know that.
Cool, guys.
So we're so glad that you joined us, and she's not glad that we just said that. Thank you for joining us on Hope Rescue. We'll be back next week. We're going to share a little bit more about the coronavirus, but a whole different perspective, and we want you to come and join with us. God bless you. Invite your friends to join us. Thanks. Have a great week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.